Hey guys, Joe here. So in this video, I want to talk about some things to consider when or if you're thinking about selling your business. So the reason why this is coming up is because I was talking to a contractor today, and they've been in business for like ever, like 30 plus years, and like it's really tough, not getting enough leads and not finding the qualified help and like all this kind of stuff. And he was like, you know what, I think I may just give it away to my, talk to my guys and maybe see about them taking it over, and I'd be the sales rep for them, right? Or like I've talked to, and then we found another person that's been in business for a really long time, went and sold as well. And so I actually, I sold my fence company to start my supply company. And so I have some kind of firsthand knowledge with this. And so this, that's why I want to talk about it. So anyway, some things to consider. Number one, more than likely, if you are selling your business because you are frustrated or just exhausted, tired of everything, whatever, chances are your business isn't worth anything, right? The reason why I say that is because if everything was going well, chances are you wouldn't even be doing, you wouldn't be doing the day-to-day operations of the business. You would be going and doing, whatever you want, and then you would just make money because your business is making money for you when you have other people running it. But that's not the case. The problem is, like, you're involved with the day-to-day operations. You might even be installing what you sell. So if you're a fence company, you're actually installing a fence or, whatever. And basically, if you are no longer around, like, there's no business, right? And so someone's not going to come in and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a business. They're not going to do that, like spend all this money to go dig holes. If they were going to do that, they would just start digging holes and, do their own fence company. So there has to be some kind of structure in place, number one, okay? Because what they consider you at this point is if you go away, the business goes away, well, at that point, that's considered a key man risk, which, as it says, like, there's a key person, and like if something happens to them, like there's an enormous risk to the business, right? The other thing with that is if you had that in place, you wouldn't be stressed, and therefore you wouldn't want to sell, right? So a lot of times this comes from, if you are not going to retire, then it's coming from some kind of pain, right? A good book to read for this is called Buying Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And it talks about this, like the pain line. And there's basically like these 5 or 6 levels that if you reach this pain line, you're basically going to do one of 3 things, which is basically you're either going to sell your business, you're going to stall where you're not going to continue to grow, or you are going to self-sabotage where you're actually going to do stuff to actually bring the business down to the level that you want it to be. Sounds crazy, but it does make sense, right? So number one is, like, if you feel like you're doing all the day-to-day stuff, like, try to figure out how you can hire a person for that. So is it like, do you just need someone in the office? Do you just hate doing the paperwork and that kind of stuff? Do you need someone in the office? Do you need someone to actually go out to do the estimates? A lot of times what I see is the owner's getting burnt out because they are doing everything. So what I suggest to people is to get rid of the installation as quickly as possible and bring in subcontractors to do that. I get a lot of blowback where people are like, I don't want to hire subs because they're going to do shitty work, they're going to steal my jobs, and the customers aren't going to want them. News for you, your employees are going to do the same thing. But at least with the subs, typically they're already trained, they have their own insurance, they have their truck, trailer, and equipment, and they're actually typically, not all the time, but they're typically going to be a lot better than employees would be right off the start. Also, you got to realize what kind of person you are. Like, are you someone like me that doesn't enjoy the day-to-day operations? Are you someone that doesn't enjoy the whole managing process? If that's the case, like, then having a bunch of, employees may not be the best case, whereas having just a sub crew might be better. It gives you more flexibility and stuff like that. The other thing to think about, if you go to sell the business, is you're like, you know what, I'm just done. I don't want to work anymore. Fair enough. I was kind of to that point, right? I was working 2 to 3 hours a week. My wife was running the fence company, and I wasn't happy. I talked about this in past videos, but like, I was so broke for so long that like there wasn't a day where I wasn't stressed about money. And I don't mean like just from owning a business. I mean, even before that. The only reason I started the business because I needed side income because I was completely broke. And then I quit my day job, and then I was doing the fencing full time, right? And the problem is I finally got to the point where I didn't have to worry about money, and then I was just as unhappy, if not more so. And so at that point, it gets worse because when you don't have enough money, you're stressed about money, you get the money, and that's your only focus. Well, what happens when you get the thing that you thought was going to fix everything and then it doesn't? What do you do then? In my case, then I'm confronting like my demons, right? And honestly, it's something I'm still working through. Like, there's plenty of days where I'm just not happy for whatever reason. I just don't know why. And it's not like suicidal unhappy, or like depression or anything like that. It's just like I feel off. What I'm starting to realize more and more, and this might be a reason for you wanting to sell your business as well, is what happens, like I have ADD. Well, what I thought versus what I'm learning are two totally different things. And looking back, I can see why I sold my business. I could see why I wasn't happy, right? And like, I think a lot came down to like, I was literally bored, as crazy as it sounds. So like with ADD, you have this low dopamine, and with this, it's harder to be happy and things like that, and getting bored and always being distracted and stuff like that, and being tired, right? And just not just not feeling great. So if you have ADD, and this low dopamine kind of thing, there's a good chance that you think that you are going to sell the business and either do nothing or start a new business or whatever else because it's exciting and it's like lighting you up, right? Mentally. And what's happening is like you're excited. The problem is, I talk about the lady in the red dress that Alex Hormozy talks about. Or like, the grass is greener on the other side, things like that. And like the grass is greener on the other side because it's fertilized and it's watered, and like they have a landscaper. The lady in the red dress looks really freaking hot, but like she's nuts. And she's got this crazy ex-boyfriend that is literally right around the corner about to beat the shit out of you. So it's like, what do you do at that point? So I would try to consider or try to think about, like, why are you really selling the business, right? And not only that, if you go and think about selling the business, do you really know what all the potential bad downsides are, right? And if you don't, and if you haven't really thought about it, or if it looks so good, it's like, oh my God, I'd be dumb not to do this. Chances are there's a lot of things that you haven't even thought of, and like they could be a hell of a lot worse than what you're currently going through now. Because I know for myself, like if I was going to go to retire at this point, because I was already semi-retired for like a year and I hated it, honestly, it's crazy to say, I'm not going to retire anytime soon. I don't want to. Like, I love working. Like, I need to keep going because if not, I'm really unhappy. And like a lot of people are like, and I was doing the same thing. I'm promoting, like I was trying to do this online coaching and helping other contractors and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to teach you how to retire as quickly as we possibly can. Looking back, that's absolutely like detrimental for a lot of people. Like I know for me, like it would be, like I'd hate life. I'd have to do something else. Like, why do you think all these like super rich billionaires and everything else that they go and sell a company and then they start something else? It's because, and for the longest time I didn't understand, because I would talk to my uncle, or not all the time, but I would have this one conversation. I'm like, why don't you retire? And my uncle had, he owned a bunch of McDonald's. At the peak, he owned 16 McDonald's, and then he's talking to me about like, because they just added like 8 in like a year or some crazy shit. And like they have 1,000 employees and everything else. I'm like, oh my God, this sounds absolutely horrible. Like, just go and retire. Because like he's owned McDonald's. He is retired now. But this is like, I don't even know how many years, 15 years later after that. But like, he's owned a McDonald's for like decades, right? He's got money, a lot of money. And I'm like, why don't you just retire? He's like, well, what am I going to do? I was like, ugh. I'm like, go find a hobby, go do something. But like, back then I didn't get it, but doing the business is the hobby. It's what I love to do. Like, I don't like weekends. I would never, like, I can't even believe, like, if you talked to me like 10, 15, 20 years ago, never would happen. I always said, like, I wanted to retire by like 20. Like, even before I started working, I'm like, I'm going to retire by 20. And, like, obviously that didn't happen. But I can't even imagine. Like, what the hell would I do? So, anyway, don't want to keep on rambling on and on, but really consider if what you're thinking about doing is really the right choice, because obviously I only went through selling a business once, but number one, it's going to be worth far less than what you think. And number two, it's more than likely it's not going to solve your problems. Because even if, like, just say you're used to making $100,000 a year, right? And just say you sell your business for $300,000. Number one, you're not getting all that money, right? So just say you sell for $500 so you can make $300. Just making up random numbers. But that gives you 3 years. What do you do after that, right? And what do you do with all your free time? Because I will say that for me personally, if I am not doing something, my brain, I have to keep my brain busy. Otherwise, it's finding ways to make me nuts. So anyway, so hopefully this helps someone. If you have any questions, you need some kind of help, I am here to help however I can. Honestly, I am exhausted. We had a contractor come in today. I guess to talk about this because I'm stuck in the thing anyway. So if you're here, great. So I had a contractor come in today. He's been in business forever as well. And he was checking us out because he didn't want to go. He uses someone else, but like they've been screwing up, and like that's the only reason he came. And so he's like, I have a concern. I'm like, okay. So he's like, are you guys like desperate for work? Because like your guy's calling all the time. And so my former supervisor is actually with me. And she's like, well, what do you mean? Like, how often is he calling? He's like, well, every few weeks. I was like, well, that's not really, I didn't say it, but I'm like, that's not really calling all the time, right? And so he's like, are you guys desperate for work? Because, well, at that point, it's like 2:30, something like that. And we close down, like, this time of year, like, we just started closing down around 2, just because it is slow, right? And, like, we don't want to work all the time. And so he's like, and, you know, the router, there's no one at the router and stuff like that. And I'm like, I got to be completely, like, I'm like, we're fine. But I said, I got to be completely honest with you. If you come and start ordering from us, great. But honestly, my goal is not to get any new customers. I said, at this point, this year alone, there's anywhere from, the last time I looked, it was 150, so it's probably about 175. It might even be as high as 200 at this point, because it's been like 3 months since I looked. But we've delivered anywhere from, or supplied to at least 150 to 175 companies. I said, we don't need any more customers. Like, we just don't. You know, I feel like it's my personal job to help the ones that have supported us. And then I went into the conversation where I'm like, you know, this guy came in, you know, he's been around forever, and like, you can just tell there's an issue. And I'm like, you have a few minutes to talk? Turned into like, you know, I end up having like probably a 45-minute conversation with the other contractor. And I'm like, that's what I'm here for. Like, I'm here to help you guys however I can. And like, if you come, great. If not, like, honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm like, that's John's deal. And I'm like, John is only going to be reaching out because like that's his paycheck. But like, it's not me going like, hey, we absolutely need this work and stuff like that. So, and I didn't use the line on him, but I've used it on other big contractors. And like, they haven't, some of the bigger ones, like, they haven't came to us. And honestly, like, the big contractors are not even our target. They're not a target customer, right? And like, I tell people, I'm like, I use the whole, like, we may not be a good fit line. It's not even like a line because I actually use it when in the hiring process. And that is, like, I tell people, like, we have to be a good fit for each other. I can't, like, owning a company, and if I'm hiring someone, like, I can't be the only one successful. Like, you got to be able to get what you need from, the business and life and, stuff like that as well. And it's the same thing for a supplier and a company. For supply, the relationship from, our end as well as for the contractors. If we have this big ass company that is, we really want to get in the door because they order like millions of dollars a year, but they expect to get it at a price that's barely above like what we pay, it's not a good fit. Yeah, we might be able to get this and like use it as like a trophy, like, oh, we got this company. But like, if we can't make any money, like it's not working for me. So we're just not going to do it, right? And so if you're going into, quotes and stuff like that, you can definitely use that line, like, we just may not be a good fit. Like, we're not the cheapest company, but, this is what we do, and this is why we're more expensive. And, like, but if you're looking for, like, the absolute cheapest company, like, we're probably just not a good fit for you. And that's okay, right? And then a lot of times what happens when you say stuff like this, because when you act like it's, like if I get your job, great. If not, like, it is what it is. A lot of times when you say it, they will actually try to sell you on why they are a good fit, right? And it's pretty crazy to see, but a lot of times these bigger guys that are coming in, I'm like, it's just not even worth it. Like, it's just not. Like, these other suppliers are running after them, but I'm like, and number two, the reason why the other suppliers are probably going after them is, and I told, this guy, is like, you got to realize we're the mom and pop shop. Like, you're ordering from Walmart right now. Like, I can't compete on price, and I don't want to. So anyway, what else we got? That's about it. So I'm gonna head out. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Put in the comments. I really have to go through the comments because I know there's a few that I have to mess with. But anyway, I'll talk to you. See ya. Bye.